Maya adjusted the thin lace strap of her wedding gown, her fingertips brushing lightly over the delicate beading sewn into the bodice. The boutique's golden lights shimmered across the fabric, catching on the tiny pearls embroidered into the floral design. She stared at her reflection, barely recognizing the woman standing there. In less than a week, she'd be walking down the aisle to marry Daniel, the man she had spent the last 5 years building her future around. Just thinking about it sent a nervous warmth spiraling through her. He was her partner, her rock, the person who always pulled her back when life got hard. And now, as she stood there in the dress she'd once dreamed of, she smiled quietly to herself, because she had one more dream about to come true. Her hand moved slowly to her stomach. It was still early, just 2 days since she saw the positive test, but the news buzzed inside her like electricity. She hadn't told Daniel yet. She'd been waiting for the perfect time, maybe on the honeymoon, or maybe the night of the wedding as they laid in bed wrapped in sheets and laughter. She could already imagine his reaction, the way his eyes would widen, how his voice would drop to a whisper as he said something like, "You're serious? We're really going to be parents." They had talked about children before, dreamed. Together, now it was real. This child was theirs. A new chapter, a symbol of everything they had survived. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Maya. Came the voice of her best friend Claire as she pushed the door open. Her blonde curls were pinned loosely, and she wore one of the pink satin robes Maya had gifted the bridal party. "You look like a goddess." Maya turned, beaming. "You think so?" "Think so," Claire said, stepping closer and tracing the embroidery on the gown. "Daniel is going to faint when he sees you." Maya giggled, her cheeks warming. "He better." Claire laughed and flopped onto the edge of the bed. "You nervous?" "A little," Maya admitted, sitting beside her. "Not about marrying Daniel, just all the pressure. What if I mess something up, trip on my veil, or say the wrong words?" "Girl, please," Claire rolled her eyes. "Even if you fall flat on your face, Daniel will still be head over heels for you." The reassurance made Maya smile. Claire had always been there, since college. Through the heartbreaks, the crazy jobs, the late-night calls, she was more like family than a friend. And tomorrow, she'd be standing beside Maya as her maid of honor. That meant something. "I can't believe this is really happening," Maya murmured, glancing at the sparkling ring on her finger. Claire nudged her shoulder. "Feels like yesterday we were eating cheap ramen on your couch, complaining about terrible dating apps." Maya laughed at the memory. "And now I'm marrying my forever person." Claire nodded, but something flickered behind her eyes, too quick to name. Maya opened her mouth to ask, but Claire spoke again. "You really love him, huh?" Maya didn't even hesitate. "With everything I have." She meant it. Daniel wasn't flawless. He could be distant, laser-focused on work, and emotionally guarded. But Maya never questioned his commitment. He was driven, successful, and had pulled himself up from nothing. That was something she admired. He'd proposed in a way that felt straight out of a movie. Just the two of them on a rooftop, city lights flickering below, soft music in the background, his words full of promise. "Maya," he'd said, "you are my home. Will you marry me?" She had never felt more seen, more chosen. Claire broke the silence. "Ever wonder what life will be like after all this?" After the wedding, Maya tilted her head. "Yeah, once the fairy tale fades, when it's just real life." Maya paused. "I think it'll change, but in a good way. We'll grow, buy a house, raise a family." Her hand found her stomach again, unconsciously. Claire reached over and gave it a light squeeze. "I'm happy for you," she said softly. There was a strange beat. Claire stood up and stretched, the moment passing like a shadow. "All right, bride-to-be. Time for beauty sleep. Big day tomorrow." Maya nodded, rising to her feet. "Yeah, big day." Claire gave her a tight hug and left with a soft, "Sweet dreams." The door clicked behind her. Maya turned back toward Yar, the mirror, staring at her reflection for a long time. Her fingers brushed over the fabric again. Tomorrow, she'd become Mrs. Daniel Carter. But sleep didn't come easily. Hours later, she was still staring at the ceiling, the city sounds humming outside. Her thoughts kept circling. Should she text him? Just a simple, "Can't sleep. Are you up?" No. He was probably resting, worn out from the rehearsal dinner, and planning chaos. She sighed and slipped out of bed, grabbing her silk robe. Maybe some fresh air would help. The apartment was mostly dark, lit only by the soft glow of the skyline pouring in through the huge windows. As she padded barefoot toward the balcony, something made her stop. Laughter, deep, muffled laughter, coming from Daniel's office. Her chest tightened. Was he still awake? Was he on a late call? But no, this wasn't phone laughter. It was too natural. Too close. She stepped closer, careful not to make a sound. The office door wasn't shut fully. A sliver of warm light spilled into the hallway. Then she heard Daniel's voice. "I still can't believe I'm actually doing this," he said. Maya froze, her fingers resting on the edge of the doorframe. Then another voice. Male, familiar. "You talked so much about avoiding marriage, Dan." The man chuckled. "Said it was a cage." Daniel laughed casually. "Maya fits the part, sweet, loyal, and best of all, totally in the dark." Before we continue the story, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us keep making stories like this. Maya's heart lurched. "She's perfect," Daniel continued. "She looks great on my arm, doesn't ask too many questions. Just the kind of wife my investors like to see." A sharp coldness settled in Maya's chest, and then the final blow came. She doesn't even know about Claire. Maya's legs locked in place. Her breath caught. For a moment, her brain couldn't make sense of the words, couldn't connect Claire with the laughter she'd heard just hours ago. But the next thing Daniel said cut through her like ice. "If Maya ever finds out," he said with a chuckle, "she'll fall apart. That woman worships me. She'd crack like glass." Claire, her Claire. The same woman who had just hugged her goodnight. The same one who had helped her pick out this dress, who smiled and said she was lucky to have a man like Daniel. Maya's entire body went numb. Daniel's friend let out a low whistle. "So, how long's it been?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "A couple of months. It started out just for fun, but Claire's addictive." Addictive. Maya's fingers clenched against the doorframe. Her nails dug into the paint, her breath shallow. The man she thought loved her, who promised forever, had been laughing behind her back with the only person she trusted like family. The pain hit in waves. She wanted to run, scream, throw something, anything. But she didn't move. She couldn't. Daniel was still talking, completely unaware of how close she was. "After the wedding, I'll get Maya to sign a prenup," he said. "Tell her it's just smart planning. She'll fall for it. And once things get boring, well, I move on. No drama." His words were casual, like he was planning a business deal. Maya stumbled back. Her throat burned. She rushed to her room, shut the door quietly, and dropped to the floor. The silence of the apartment now felt deafening. Her hands trembled as she covered her mouth, trying to muffle the sobs that surged out of her like a dam breaking. Daniel had played her. And Claire had stood beside her, smiled at her, told her how lucky she was. The betrayal sank in like poison. Her chest heaved as she gripped the edge of the bathroom sink, staring at herself in the mirror. Her robe clung to her damp skin. Her cheeks were streaked with tears. Her lips trembled. Trophy wife. That's what he called her. Clueless. Was she really that blind? All those late nights he said he was working. All the times she brushed off his coldness as stress. Every moment she defended him, told herself love just looked different for everyone. She had believed in him, built her life around him, and now he was plotting her downfall with her best friend. She wanted to leave, pack her bags, take the baby, and vanish before sunrise. She had money saved, enough to disappear, start fresh, somewhere far away. But Daniel's voice echoed in her mind. She'd crack like glass, fragile, weak. Maya's jaw locked. No, she wouldn't break. She wouldn't run. She would give him the wedding he wanted. The perfect show, the fairy tale. And Then she would ruin him. Her fingers gripped the edge of the sink tighter. Her eyes narrowed. He had underestimated her, and that would be his biggest mistake. Her mind raced through names. Who could she trust? Who wasn't already wrapped around Daniel's finger? Only one person came to mind. Liam, Daniel's younger brother. The only one who had ever treated her like more than an accessory. She grabbed her phone, scrolling until she found his name. Her thumb hovered. She'd never called him this late before. But tonight was different. She hit dial, 1 ring, 2. Then his voice, groggy but alert, answered. Maya? He sounded concerned instantly. What's going on? Her throat was tight. For a second she couldn't speak. The lump in her chest was too heavy, but Liam waited patiently. Take a breath, he said gently. Talk to me. I need to see you, Maya finally whispered. Where are you? Home. I'm coming. Give me 10 minutes. The call ended. No questions, no hesitation. Just quiet certainty. 10 minutes. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, hands still shaking, but this time, not from grief, from something colder, sharper, resolve. She would not be Daniel's victim. When Liam walked into the cafe later that night, Maya was already sitting in the far booth, hands wrapped tightly around a cup of tea gone. Cold. She hadn't touched it. Her thoughts were too loud. The door chimed softly behind him. When he spotted her, his entire posture shifted, his brows furrowed. He crossed the space between them without pause and slid into the seat across from her. He didn't say anything right away, just looked at her, really looked, taking in her red-rimmed eyes, the way her fingers trembled around the cup, the stiffness in her posture. Tell me everything, Liam said quietly. Maya inhaled shakily. She hadn't cried again since locking herself in her room earlier. She told herself she wouldn't waste another tear on Daniel Carter. But sitting across from Liam, someone who wasn't pretending, she cracked just a little. I heard him, she whispered. He was talking to Mason about me, about Claire. Liam's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists on the table. Maya's voice was barely audible. He doesn't love me. I was just a tool, something to make him look good. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. And Claire. She's been sleeping with him this whole time. My best friend. Liam's knuckles went white. She blinked rapidly, her voice shaking. After the wedding, he was going to make me sign a prenup, then leave, just like that. Liam leaned back, exhaling sharply. I always knew Daniel was arrogant, he muttered. But this? He looked away, jaw clenched. Then back at her. And you're sure about Claire? Maya nodded. He said she's addictive, like I was just some boring backup. Liam cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. What are you going to do? He asked. Maya didn't hesitate. I thought about running, but I'm done playing the quiet girl who forgives everything. She sat up straighter. I want to destroy him the way he planned to destroy me. A slow, dark grin tugged at the edge of Liam's lips. So you want revenge? Yes. Liam nodded slowly. He didn't try to change her mind, didn't tell her to be the bigger person. Instead, he leaned in. Then let's make it hurt. Maya studied Liam across the table, his eyes steady, jaw still tense. He didn't look away once, not even as her words sank in like poison. It wasn't just that he was listening. It was that he believed her. She hadn't realized how badly she needed that until now. Everyone else in Daniel's world saw her as an ornament, something quiet and pretty, never dangerous. But Liam? He saw more. He leaned forward slightly, his voice low and calm. We'll let him think everything's fine. You act like nothing's wrong. Be gentle, soft, exactly what he expects. And in the meantime? Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We gather proof, Liam said. Messages, photos, anything that connects him and Claire. We don't give him a way out. Maya exhaled slowly. And then we ruin him. At the altar, Liam replied. In front of everyone. She nodded once, her heart pounding with a quiet fire that refused to die. For the first time since that night, she felt something other than pain. She felt powerful. The next morning came with clouded skies and the thick stillness of a city not quite awake. Maya didn't feel light. She didn't feel at peace, but she felt in control. The ache in her chest was buried beneath something colder, something sharper. She moved through her morning like she had rehearsed it, like a woman in full command of the stage. Daniel, of course, wasn't home. He'd stayed out for his bachelor party, or so he said. By the time he returned later that afternoon, Maya was in the kitchen arranging a charcuterie board, carefully slicing cheese and lining up berries like nothing was wrong. She heard the door open, then footsteps, confident, loud, like always. "Hey, babe," Daniel said as he stepped behind her, and wrapped an arm around her waist. He kissed her neck. "Miss me?" Maya smiled softly, turning just enough to let him think he was still welcome. "Of course." He chuckled, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. Last night was insane. Mason practically had to be carried out. She nodded, her knife gliding cleanly through a wedge of brie. "Sounds fun." Daniel watched her, brow slightly raised. "You okay?" She blinked, looking up. "What do you mean?" He tilted his head slightly. "You seem, I don't know, different." Maya let out a small, breathy laugh and returned to the tray. "I'm getting married tomorrow. Pretty sure that's enough to make anyone a little off." He seemed satisfied, with that moving closer again. "Cold feet?" She turned and met his gaze, her voice steady. "Not about you, just nerves." He grinned, relaxing. "The second you walk down that aisle, none of this stress will matter." Maya gave him a smile that looked just fragile enough to be believable. Inside, her resolve only deepened. This man didn't suspect a thing. The next few days were a performance. Maya smiled when she needed to. She laughed at the right jokes. She let Daniel touch her like nothing had changed. But her mind was elsewhere, laser-focused on the endgame. Liam was always nearby, always, quietly present. When Maya needed a second to breathe, to step away, to plan, he was there. Sometimes it was a glance across the room during rehearsal dinner. Other times it was a quick meeting late at night in quiet corners where no one could find them. They never said too much in public. They didn't need to. They understood the stakes. Tonight was no different. They sat at a dimly lit cafe tucked off a side street, the kind of place no one from Daniel's circle would ever visit. Maya stirred her tea slowly, lost in thought, while Liam tapped his fingers against the table, that familiar tension in his jaw again. She looked up. "You don't have to do this, you know." He raised an eyebrow. "Do what?" "Help me. Daniel's your brother." Liam scoffed. "Don't remind me." She gave a faint smile. "Still, this could blow back on you." Liam leaned back in his seat, exhaling through his nose. "Maya, let's be honest. You think I'd sit back and let him destroy you? After everything?" Her brows lifted slightly. She wasn't expecting the anger in his voice. Real. Personal. He continued, his voice quieter now. "I've watched him lie and cheat and manipulate for years. I've seen what it does to people, but this, what he did to you, this is different." She swallowed hard. "Why?" He hesitated just a moment, then leaned in. "Because you didn't deserve this, not even close." The words hit her deeper than she expected. For a long second, neither of them said a word. Outside, the city moved on without them. Cars passed, laughter echoed from another booth. But here, everything felt suspended. Maya dropped her gaze to the table. "I don't even know who I am." "Timur," she murmured. "I thought I had everything figured out." Liam didn't say anything at first. Then he reached across the table and lightly touched her hand. He didn't squeeze, didn't rush her. Just let his fingers rest there, steady, real. "You're still you," he said gently. "You're just finally seeing things clearly." I looked up at him, breath hitching slightly in her chest. And in that moment, Maya didn't feel like a victim. She didn't feel broken. She felt seen. Her hand slipped away suddenly, as if the moment had become too much. "This isn't the time for whatever this is." she whispered. Liam leaned back, giving her space. I know. She shifted uncomfortably, eyes flicking to the door. So, what's next? We stick to the plan. Maya nodded slowly. Right, the plan. But as she stepped out into the cold air that night, her heart thudding in her chest, she couldn't shake the strange feeling that something had changed between them. Something unspoken. And that scared her more than the revenge. The cathedral was breathtaking. Towering stone columns reached up into arches lit by golden chandeliers, and colored glass windows painted the marble floor in soft hues of blue and red. Every detail of the ceremony was picture perfect, down to the ivory ribbons wrapped around each bouquet. Guests whispered in admiration as they took their seats, the low hum of anticipation growing louder with each passing minute. It was the kind of wedding Maya would have dreamed of once, the kind Daniel had insisted on. Grand, extravagant, overflowing with status. At the altar, Daniel stood tall in his custom suit, shaking hands with high-profile friends in the front row. He wore the kind of confident smile only someone unaware of their own downfall could wear. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his cufflinks gleamed under the soft lighting, and his posture was casual, like he believed everything was firmly under control. He had no idea that control had already slipped through his fingers. Maya stood. Just beyond the grand entrance, her fingers wrapped tightly around her bouquet. The lace of her dress brushed against the polished floor, and behind her the bridesmaids whispered final words of encouragement, adjusting their gowns and hair. Claire stood off to the side, her back turned, fixing her lip gloss. Maya didn't look at her. Didn't need to. Everything about this moment had been planned. Not by Daniel, not by the wedding coordinator, by Maya. She focused instead on her breathing, steady and even, and on the weight of her dress, the gown she had once loved. Now it was armor. The floral embroidery that once made her smile now felt like symbols etched into her war paint. She shifted her shoulders as the music began, signaling the start. A woman peeked her head in and gave a soft nod. It's time. Maya exhaled slowly and raised her chin. A faint smile played on her lips. Not a happy smile, a knowing one. Let the curtains rise. The cathedral doors swung open with a soft groan, and all at once, heads turned. A wave of admiration swept across the room, followed by silence. Maya stepped through the entrance, the light casting a soft halo over her veil. She walked with slow, deliberate grace, her heels clicking gently with each step. She didn't need to look around to know every eye was on her. She could feel the weight of their stares, their awe. She welcomed it. Daniel's grin widened as he watched her walk toward him. He tilted his head slightly, clearly satisfied with what he saw. Him Maya looked like perfection, like the prize he was about to claim. She reached the altar and stood across from him. Their hands met, his curling around hers like a practiced habit. To the guests, it was a beautiful moment. To Maya, it was a performance. She let her expression soften, her eyes resting on his as if she still believed in the dream he had sold her. Just one more moment. Just one more lie. The officiant cleared his throat and smiled warmly. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. But Maya barely heard him. Her thoughts weren't on the vows or the traditions. They were focused entirely on the next few seconds. She could feel Liam's presence behind her, one row back among the groomsmen. Solid, grounding. She didn't have to look. She knew he was watching. Ready. Daniel's thumb traced light circles on her hand. To anyone watching, it would have seemed sweet. Intimate, but to Maya, it felt suffocating. And now, the officiant said, glancing up with a kind smile, Maya, do you take... She lifted her free hand. The entire room froze. Daniel turned, slightly toward her, his smile faltering. Maya, he whispered. She turned her head, met his gaze, and held it for a long beat. Then she said calmly, Before I answer that, there's something I think everyone should see. A murmur rippled through the pews. Daniel blinked, confused. What are you? But behind them, the large LED screen flickered to life. At first, just static. Then the first image appeared. Daniel in bed, half covered, with Claire beside him. Gasp echoed through the room like a crack of thunder. Someone in the back let out a shocked, "Oh my God!" Daniel's face went pale. His grip on Maya's hand tightened. Another photo appeared. Then another. The angles changed. The lighting. Varied, but the faces stayed the same. Claire, Daniel, undeniable. Then came the text messages. Blown up on the screen, scrolling slowly for all to see. "Wish you were here instead. She's totally clueless. After the prenup, I'll be free." The whispers turned into full-blown murmurs. Heads whipped back and forth as guests turned to one another in disbelief. Phones came out. Someone was recording. Daniel stepped forward, his voice rising in panic. "This is fake. This is some sick prank." Maya laughed under her breath. "Really? That's your defense?" More screenshots followed, then audio. Daniel's voice played loud and clear, captured from that night in his office. "She's a trophy wife, that's all." Gasps, disgust. Even his own mother turned away. Daniel turned to Maya. "Please, let me explain." "I'm not finished," she said, silencing him. And then she dropped the final blow. Her hand moved to her stomach. "I'm pregnant," she said. More gasps. Claire, standing a few feet back, looked like she might faint. Daniel's voice cracked. You're what?" Maya met his eyes. "Pregnant." For a brief second, his face softened, hope flashing behind his eyes. "Maya, listen. Ken," she cut him off, her voice like a blade. "The baby's not yours." Silence. Total, consuming silence. Then, from the groomsman, Liam stepped forward. Calm, composed. "I am," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. Daniel staggered, back a step as if someone had knocked the air out of him. He stared at Liam, his face twisted in disbelief. "You're lying," Daniel snapped. But Maya didn't even blink, and Liam didn't flinch. Daniel's hands balled into fists, his voice shaking. "You set this up, both of you." Liam looked him dead in the eyes. "You destroyed yourself." The cathedral erupted. It wasn't the kind of eruption filled with applause or joy. It was stunned silence cracking apart under the weight of whispers, murmurs, and barely hushed gasps. Daniel stood frozen, his entire body rigid, while his mind desperately scrambled for something, anything, that would make this nightmare vanish. But the screen behind him still glowed, casting light on all the lies he could no longer bury. Maya turned her head slowly, taking in the crowd. Some guests looked stunned. Others stared at Daniel like they didn't recognize him. His mother had a hand over her mouth. His father's jaw was tight, eyes locked on the man he once called his son. No one moved to comfort him. No one said a word in his defense, and then Daniel snapped. With a strangled growl, he lunged forward, toward Liam. The crowd flinched, but Liam was ready. He sidestepped with ease, grabbing Daniel's arm mid-swing and twisting it behind his back. Daniel stumbled forward, off balance, and with one firm shove, Liam sent him sprawling across the marble floor. The sound echoed, sharp and final. The entire room went silent. Someone gasped. Another stifled a scream. Liam stood still, unbothered, towering above him. His face was calm, unreadable. "Sit down, Daniel," he said coldly. "You've embarrassed yourself enough." Daniel groaned as he struggled to get up, but his limbs felt weak, like they didn't belong to him anymore, like they had betrayed him too. He clutched his arm, now sore and bruised, and blinked up at the crowd. All he saw were eyes, watching, judging. His father's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "That's enough." Daniel stopped cold. Slowly, he turned his head toward the man who had funded his business, defended him at every family gathering, praised him even when he didn't deserve it. But the man standing now didn't look like a proud father. He looked disgusted. "You've humiliated this family," his father said, his voice low but razor-sharp. "You'll never carry our name again." Daniel's chest tightened. "Dad, you are no son of mine." Those 5 words landed harder than any punch. The murmurs picked up again, now louder. A woman in the front row, One of his investors was already typing on her phone, probably pulling out of their next deal. Others shifted in their seats, some already standing to leave. Whatever illusion of control Daniel had clung to, it was crumbling fast. Then someone else moved. Claire. She was inching along the side aisle, head low, purse clutched tight, trying to disappear without a sound. But she wasn't fast enough. Where? "Do you think you're going?" A sharp voice called from the crowd, one of Daniel's cousins. Heads turned, Claire froze. I just needed some air," she stammered. Another guest scoffed. "You're gonna need more than air, sweetheart." Laughter followed, cold, ruthless. Maya watched from the altar, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Claire glanced toward her, eyes wide, silently pleading for something, for forgiveness, for understanding, for a way out. But Maya tilted her head slightly. That was all. Claire opened her mouth like she wanted to explain, but the murmurs grew louder. One guest muttered, "Home wrecker." Another whispered, "She's disgusting." The words wrapped around her like a noose. She looked toward Daniel, maybe expecting him to say something, to rescue her. But Daniel wasn't even looking. He was still on the ground, still trying to process the fact that Liam, his own brother, had taken everything from him. Claire realized it all in one horrible instant. He wasn't going to defend her. He never intended to. She was nothing but collateral damage. Without another word, Claire turned and bolted out the side door. No one followed. No one cared. Maya stood calmly in the center of it all. The screen behind her had gone black now, but the silence it left was deafening. She looked down at her hands, still holding the bouquet she'd carefully chosen just days ago. She let out a quiet breath. Daniel finally pulled himself upright, shaking slightly. "Maya," he said, his voice hoarse, "I can explain." She looked at him, not with hate, not with fury, with indifference, like he no longer mattered. Daniel took a step toward her. "I made a mistake, but you—" The priest cleared his throat awkwardly, still standing behind them with his hands folded. "Shall we continue with the ceremony?" Maya didn't answer right away. She glanced behind. Her Liam was there, still, steady. Her eyes locked onto his, searching. He stepped forward without hesitation. One step, then another. The air in the room shifted. Liam stood in front of her now, blocking Daniel from view. And then, without any fanfare, he dropped to one knee. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maya blinked. "What are you doing?" Liam reached for her hand, his grip warm and sure. "Marry me," he said. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't anything like what Daniel had once done with his rooftop lights and empty poetry. It was real, raw. "You deserve better," Liam said, his voice softer now. "Someone who doesn't lie. Someone who doesn't treat you like an accessory. I'll love you. I'll protect you every day, with everything I have." Maya's throat tightened. For so long she had wondered if love was supposed to hurt, if betrayal was something to be forgiven, if she had imagined it all. But looking into Liam's eyes, she finally understood. She had never been the problem. She had just been with the wrong person. She didn't even hesitate. "Yes," she whispered. Liam stood and wrapped his arms around her. The crowd erupted. Some clapped, some cried. And Daniel stood in the ruins of his own making, watching the woman he once tried to control walk straight past him into a life he would never touch again. Maya stood at the altar with Liam, her hand still wrapped tightly in his. Around them the crowd slowly settled, murmurs fading into an awkward hush as the stunned priest cleared his throat again. He glanced at the couple before him, clearly unsure how to proceed. This was not the ceremony he had rehearsed, but Maya didn't care. She didn't need tradition, she needed this moment. And Liam— "Well then," the priest said, his voice a little shaky. "Shall we begin again?" Maya smiled softly. "Let's." The rest of the ceremony unfolded like a strange dream. There was no music cue, no rehearsed exchange of vows, just two people standing before an audience full of shocked faces and camera phones, speaking with quiet certainty. When Liam slid the ring onto her finger, his hand didn't tremble. His touch was gentle but firm, like a silent promise she could actually believe in. And when the priest announced, "You may kiss the bride," Liam hesitated. Not because he was unsure, but because he wanted Maya to choose. She leaned in first, and the kiss they shared wasn't for the guests. It wasn't for revenge. It was just for them. Grounded. Real. A beginning. The cathedral exploded into applause, cheers rising from friends, strangers, and even a few people who had once stood firmly in Daniel's corner. Maya felt Liam's arm wrap protectively around her waist as they turned to walk down the aisle, not as actors in a performance, but as something solid and true. Daniel remained where he was, standing stiffly to the side, his expression hollow. The man who once had the world at his feet was now an island, untouchable, alone. The reception later that evening felt like a scene from a completely different life. The air was thick with twinkling lights and the scent of roses. Long banquet. Tables stretched beneath open tents, and music drifted from the live quartet tucked under a vine-covered arch. Maya had once envisioned this night with Daniel. But standing here now, with Liam's hand gently resting on her back, she knew this version was the one that was meant to be. She drifted from table to table, greeting guests who spoke to her with admiration, not pity. No one mentioned Daniel, no one brought up Claire. The betrayal, though still raw, had already begun to fade under the weight of something stronger. Truth. When Maya finally returned to the dance floor, Liam was waiting. He extended a hand, and she took it without hesitation. They moved together, slowly, swaying beneath the string lights as if they were the only two people left in the world. The sound of glasses clinking and distant laughter blurred into the background. Maya rested her head against his shoulder, her fingers resting lightly against the lapel of his suit. Liam held her a little closer. "You holding up okay?" he asked softly. Maya nodded. "Better than I thought I would. You were incredible today." She let out a quiet breath. "I was terrified." "I know," he said. "But you didn't let it show, not once." She smiled faintly. "That's because you were there." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. They moved in silence for a while, their steps light and unhurried. Maya could feel the rhythm of his heartbeat through his chest, steady and grounding. Then, almost too softly to hear, she asked, "Liam?" "Yeah?" "How long?" she said, her voice barely above the music. "How long have you felt this way?" He didn't miss a beat. "Since the first time I saw you make Daniel laugh." Maya blinked, lifting her head just enough to look at him. "That was years ago," she whispered. "I know," he said, smiling faintly. "But I knew it then. I didn't say anything. Didn't think I had the right." Maya felt something shift inside her, something soft and heavy and overwhelming. "Why didn't you?" Liam gave a small shrug. "Because you looked at him like he was everything. And all I could think was, I wish someone would look at me like that." She couldn't speak for a moment. Her chest tightened with a mix of sadness and gratitude. She had spent so long wondering if love ever really saw her, if it ever truly understood her. And here he was, this man who had stayed in the background for so long, offering her the kind of honesty she had always deserved. Maya reached up, brushing a thumb across Liam's jaw. "You didn't need to wish," she whispered. "You just had to wait." He looked at her, stunned for a second before a wide grin slowly spread across his face. "Yeah?" he asked. "Yeah," she said, a real smile breaking across her own. He spun her gently, pulling her back into his arms with a playful ease that made her laugh for the first time in what felt like forever. And as they danced beneath the stars, surrounded by the soft glow of lanterns and music that felt like it belonged in a film, Maya realized something profound. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't afraid. Daniel had taken so much from her, her trust, her peace, her sense of worth. But he hadn't destroyed her. He had shown her what she never wanted again. and in doing so, had pushed her straight into the arms of someone who would never see her as a prop or a prize, someone who saw her. As the night wore on, Maya and Liam stole away from the crowd. They stood just outside the edge of the tent where the lights faded into soft shadows. Liam's jacket was draped over her shoulders and her heels dangled from her hand. "I know it's all still new," Liam said, watching her carefully. "But I meant everything I said up there." She looked up at him. "So did I. Even the part where you said yes, especially that part," he smiled. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." Maya leaned her head against his chest, the warmth of his voice echoing through her ribs. "Neither am I." The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds like a quiet revelation, casting golden rays over the estate's empty lawn. Flower petals from the night before still lingered along the stone path, and empty champagne flutes sat forgotten, on tables draped in white linen. The storm had passed. The destruction was complete. But for Maya, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the first real day of her life. She stood barefoot at the edge of the veranda, wrapped in a soft cream shawl, watching the dew collect on the grass. The events of the previous day replayed in her mind. Not like a nightmare, but like a memory she had claimed power over. She had walked into that cathedral broken. She had walked out whole. Behind her, she heard the sliding door open and Liam stepped out, coffee mug in hand. His tie was gone, the top buttons of his shirt undone, his hair still a little tousled. There was no show, no pretense. Just him. Steady. Real. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, walking over. Maya shook her head, still staring at the horizon. "Too quiet." He handed her the second cup. "You okay?" She took it, nodded, then paused. "I thought I'd feel empty. Or maybe angry. But I don't." Liam stepped beside her, resting his mug on the wooden railing. "That's because you burned it all down. There's nothing left to carry." A silence passed between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that felt earned. "I always thought love had to be dramatic," Maya said. Softly. "Big speeches, perfect moments, but I think maybe it's this." Liam glanced at her. "You mean standing barefoot, wearing a blanket with cold coffee and no makeup?" She smiled. "Exactly that." He chuckled and looked back, at the view. "It suits you." They stayed like that for a while, letting the morning wash over them. Back inside, Daniel's absence was still being felt, but not mourned. He hadn't been seen since storming out of the cathedral, and word had spread fast. News outlets had picked up pieces of the scandal. Social media was ablaze, and Maya's inbox was filled with messages ranging from apologies to admiration. But she hadn't answered any of them. Not yet. She wasn't ready to revisit that version of herself, the one who had been blindsided, manipulated, lied to. Instead, she sat at the kitchen island, phone in hand, staring at the one message she had left unread since last night. Claire, a single text, "I'm sorry." That was it. No excuses, no explanations. Just a quiet apology from the woman who had once stood beside her, promising forever, and then walked away the second it got hard. Maya didn't respond. Some things didn't deserve closure. Later that evening, Maya and Liam took a quiet walk through the garden behind the house. The light was soft, fading into shades of amber and rose as the sun began to set. Liam reached out and laced his fingers through hers, and she let him. No hesitation. "I know this all happened fast," he said, breaking the silence. "And if you ever feel like it's too much..." Maya stopped walking. "Liam," she said gently, turning to face him, "you didn't steal me from Daniel. You found me when he dropped me." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I just don't want to be another mistake." "You're not." Her voice was steady, her eyes unwavering. "I know the difference now," she continued. "I know what it feels like to be seen. Not admired, not controlled, seen." He leaned in slightly, forehead brushing against hers. "And I see you, Maya, every part." She smiled, a little sad, a little grateful. "I believe you." They kissed again, softer this time. Not because it was new, but because it was safe. As the sun disappeared beyond the hills, they sat on the garden bench in quiet companionship. Maya looked up at the stars, just starting to peek through the dusky sky. "Do you ever think," she whispered, "that everything happened exactly the way it had to?" Liam didn't answer right away, then, "Yeah, I do." They sat there until the air turned cool and the crickets took over the soundtrack of the night. Nothing dramatic, nothing scripted, just two people, finally at peace. Later, when Maya was alone in her room again, she reached into a box she hadn't opened in weeks. Inside were old photographs, dried roses, and the wedding invitation she had once mailed out with such joy. Her fingers hovered over it. She picked it up, stared at the name printed beside hers, Daniel Carter. Without a second thought, she tore the invitation in half, then tossed it into the fireplace. She stood there, watching the flames turn it to ash, the paper curling, blackening, crumbling. She felt no sorrow, no regret, just release. In its place, she imagined a new one. Maya, Alice, and Liam Carter. No cathedral, no LED screens, no secrets, just truth and love. The kind that didn't need to be proven with grand gestures, the kind that stayed. She crawled into bed that night and pulled the covers tight around her. As her eyes fluttered closed, her last thought wasn't about revenge or betrayal or even survival. It was about tomorrow, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, she was actually excited to wake up. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your favorite moment in the comments.